Welcome back to the Intercooler podcast, everybody. The podcast powered by car finance specialist JBR Capital. What did we do recently? Cars of the People?
Yeah, so should we go the other way this time?
Let's go the exact opposite direction.
Yeah.
This is the specials. What are we talking about? The special, rare, tricked up versions of often already quite spicy performance cars.
Yeah, and often limited editions.
Yeah.
And can I just put something out there from the very start?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a breed of car more overrated than specials.
Do you know what? I used to think that some of my favourite cars were the specials that we're going to discuss, but I'm sort of changing my mind now because the great cars are designed from a clean sheet of paper to be a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not that.
They're all spin-offs.
Yeah.
They're all spin-offs. And often I would say, and this isn't to say these aren't also great cars, but the limitations, the drawbacks they bring, in certain areas so that they can be even better in other areas, provide compromises which to me don't add up to a better car.
Interesting. Okay, we'll assess that point of view as
Having
we
said
go.
that, I'm going to spend the next hour going on about how wonderful these things are.
Yeah.
But there are lots of. I mean, there are clearly some which do improve upon the original, but there are so many. And it was just interesting. It was just researching this that I just kind of thought, well, yeah, but actually, so often I'd just rather have the normal one.
Interesting. Well, let's come back to that. I mean, there is a hook here, isn't it? Isn't there? There's a car that we're sort of hanging this whole thing off.
How much do we know about this car, or how much are we allowed to know about this car?
Not a lot at the moment.
No.
Only that it's coming, and it's going to be quite different.
We believe so.
So there is a new Bentley, as we understand it, a limited series Bentley on the way.
Mm-hmm. Do we know what it's called? Just in case we don't know what it's called, let's speculate they're going to call it the Super Sports.
Yeah, they haven't
because they've done that before.
They've teased this car. They've shown some teaser images.
Yeah,
and it's based on a Continental GT.
Don't call it a Continental Super Sports. You'll get into all sorts of trouble. I did that once. Don't want to do that again.
Okay, don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's clearly based on a Continental GT, but you can tell there's a wing on the back and bits of bodywork look different. So I think it's going to be quite special, but as we understand it, there are some quite significant changes under the skin that will make it really quite different to the car it's derived from.
Such as? Do we want to say? No.
I don't think we do.
Okay, fine. Okay. Let's look at it from another. What do we want this, regardless of what it turns out to be?
Yeah, okay.
Because we apparently don't know that. What would we want this car to? What do we want a Bentley Super Sports to be? Okay, there's one word in my head.
Lighter.
Yeah,
so So if it is going to be called Super Sports, clearly it needs to be a really super sporting version of it.
Yeah.
And job one is take weight out of it, isn't it?
Wouldn't it be great if they also took a couple of drive shafts out of it too?
Oh, rear drive.
Yeah, well,
not front wheel drive.
Well, you're going to have front-wheel drive Super Sports. That would be an interesting sell. But that would be, obviously that would help hugely with the weight saving. But it would be such a good statement of intent, wouldn't it? It
would show a sense of humour as well.
Yeah.
There aren't many car companies doing radical things like that.
Yeah, but you could, this would be the first. Okay, so actually the current hybrid Continental GT, because of where the battery pack is now a properly balanced car, and you can skid that about. But if they did a rear drive Super Sports, and I can't emphasize enough that this is not something that that we know, wouldn't that be amazing?
Could be. Blimey, I hadn't thought about it.
So how would you get all that weight out of it?
So there's no W12 anymore, is there?
No. Okay, but the V8 is still quite heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be surprised at how little weight difference there is between the W12 and the W12 and the V8. It's about 50 kilos. It's not a big deal.
They're all hybrid, aren't they?
They're all hybrid. Yeah. But could you ditch the hybrid? Don't know.
You'd save a lot of weight.
You save a massive amount of weight because you save the motor, but also you think of not just the motor and the battery pack, but all the gubbins that goes with it, all the cooling, all the pipework, all the electronic units and that sort of thing. Yeah, what else could you? I guess. I mean, it depends how many they want to build. It depends how far they want to go. But you could do carbon fiber body parts, couldn't you? And all the usual things. You could put absolutely everything on the optional extras list as no cost options.
Yeah.
To at least create the illusion of a car that is extremely light. I hope they do. I mean, okay, the super sports. So I think have they done 2 previously?
Well, that's right, and they were not radically different, were they?
Well, they was it the first one, which was a 2-seater, or were they both 2-seaters?
Well, there was the GT3R, which was a 2-seater.
Yeah,
which is a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, these were okay. So these to me are examples of cars which probably they were funnier and they were faster and they probably sounded better. But if I think of what I want from that kind of car, they probably didn't necessarily. I mean, dynamically they would have massively improved on the originals, but only at the cost of considerable additional expense and removal of sort of comfort and practicality. And in my view, that if you're going to go down that road, do it properly. Get all the weight out, get rid of the drive shafts, do a proper hooligan Bentley. I'd love that.
A hooligan Bentley.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be super
And wouldn't
cool.
that just be such a... Yeah, because we know at the moment, don't we, the Bentley is caught in a bit of a product trough insofar as, the cars they've got, the Bentayga, the Continental GT and the Flying Spur are not in the first flush of youth. And we know that there is this new, what they call urban EV coming in 2027. But we're not even out of 2025 yet. And, Bentley is obviously keen to keep itself in the headlines, keen to show that it is still doing new and interesting stuff. And what a great, particularly, I guess, and I've only just thought of this, if you're doing an EV, do you not need something to balance that out and just say, actually, guys, we still get it.
Yeah,
we're doing this EV and that's fine. And we hope that we sell loads and loads and loads. But for you people out there who really think of Bentley as being a car for a certain sort of driver, well, you can have a look at this.
Well, that's right. Bentley always needs to have something of the
I think
rogue
it does.
about
particularly as they appear to be the only premium manufacturer in the world who's not racing at the moment.
Yeah.
They
still
absolutely need something.
We were talking to someone quite recently, very, very familiar with the British sort of luxury and sports car manufacturing sector. Maybe we'll get him on soon. But he was telling us that you'll sit in meetings, ideas meetings, I guess, and the first people to talk will be, I can't remember what department he said, but call it compliance. And compliance will talk and list all these things that you simply can't do for all these reasons.
Yeah.
And all the energy is just sucked out of the room.
Yeah.
And so...
And you, even before you've opened your mouth, you're sitting there thinking, oh, what's the bloody point?
Yeah. It does sound really dispiriting. But if Bentley can come up with something truly radical and exciting, then wonderful.
The thing is, it'll sell. If they did a super sports that, I don't know, weighed, I don't know if they could get it under 2 tons. Maybe that's a pipe dream. But if it did, and it was really good fun, and it was rear drive, and it did enormous skids, and it was very, very cool. I guarantee, I don't know how, unless the pricing was crazy, if they priced it properly, they'd sell them.
They would.
They absolutely would. And it could become a sort of cult type car. And, and it's been so long since they've done anything like that. Have they ever done anything like that? I think back to things like the, not the Arnage T, what was the other one? The Continental T. Do you remember the short wheelbase? They did a short wheelbase version of the Continental R, which was absolutely bonkers and had no ride quality at all. But it was a proper Bentley hot rod. We loved those.
The GT3R is probably the most radical Bentley there has been in recent years. Yeah. It was a 2-seater, decent weight saving, but still 4-wheel drive and still owed a lot to the car it's based on. Maybe this new one will be a step beyond even that. So these are the specials, the special, often limited edition variants of existing sports and performance cars. Let's not get bogged down in GT 911s. Great cars, we love them, but we talk about them a fair bit.
We do, yeah. I mean, the only thing, the only sort of way that they are tangentially relevant to what you go is obviously there's an entire category of specials which come under the title of homologation specials.
Absolutely.
And the GT cars were, they are an example actually of a car that was conceived to be a homologation special. Which has gone on and have a life far, far beyond that. Things like E30 M3s. Yeah. Another example.
Integrales.
Yeah, of cars which were designed for one purpose and proved to be so popular, they went on to have lives far, far beyond what was maybe initially expected, but certainly beyond what was required to homologate them for the competition purpose they were intended for.
There's also an entirely new category of special that perhaps we'll dive into, the off-road sports car. That's a recent phenomenon.
They're I've got them on here.
Yeah, we'll come back to those.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how far back do you want to go? Do you think it's actually quite a recent thing?
Well, you and I were a couple of weeks ago at Bicester Motion, and I saw an old Porsche 924 coming towards us.
Yeah, it drove past.
And I was looking at it, I think, okay, so it's clearly a Carrera GT. It's a 924 Carrera GT. And then I thought, hang on, no, it's not. It's a GTS. That one little letter. A 924 Carrera GT was homologation special, but the really gun version, which I can't remember the groups, but the GTS homologated the car to be able to race in a higher category. They made 50 of them. Derek Bell has one. And you can tell because they don't have pop-up. They've got sort of clear lenses. Okay. They don't have pop-up headlights, and they're very rare. And that's from the early 1980s. So they've been knocking about for a long time. I think the Ferrari 288 GTO, or GTO as it's properly called, was a homologation car for a car that in the end didn't need homologating. Well, actually, let's go back further. Let's go back to the original GTO. The 250 GTO, which it's in the title. The O of GTO stands for omologato.
Yeah,
and I mean that car was a bit of a fiddle because they produced the 250 short wheelbase in 1960 and 61, and it did win. It was the most competitive car of its era, but they wanted a much quicker version. And so basically they designed a racing car called the 250 GTO and said, oh, no, it's just a tweaked version of that. And if you looked at it or anything in specification, damn well it's nothing of the sort.
Yeah.
But I think, I imagine, and I have a faint memory that when they went, not sure about this, I think Enzo did his usual sort of dummy spit and threatened to withdraw everything from everywhere. Yeah. And surprise, surprise, it got homologated. They did, I think, so the successor to the 250 GTO was the 250 LM. And I think they tried the same game with that, and they did get told to shove it there because that, apart from anything else, was mid-engine.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you can possibly say that if you design a brand new car and the engine's not even anywhere near where it used to be, that's somehow a homologated version. So homologation specials have been going on for as long as race organisers have been requiring a certain number of road legal cars to be provided before you can go and race a car in a certain kind of category.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I think the specials that we're discussing, they probably try to borrow some of the prestige from the homologation special, don't they? They try to lean into that. But typically, the ones we're discussing here are not homologation cars.
Yeah, but there are so I've written a list. Okay, these are just homologation cars. So the 94 GTS we've discussed, the E30 N3 we discussed briefly. There were all those Group B rally cars.
Yeah.
205s, Lancia Deltas, Metros,
Quattros.
They're all short Quattros. They're all specials, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are. But they're proper. This is pucker stuff, isn't it? Real homologation, proper motorsport breeding.
Lancia Stratos, pure homologation special.
Yeah.
Mega thing. Escort Cosworth. Sierra RS 500,
yeah.
GR Yaris, homologation car.
Yeah,
who remember that?
Absolutely.
BMW M1, 250 GO, talked about mid-engine Renault 5 Turbo with the original. And 911 GT3. So there are no shortage of cars, but those aren't the cars that you want to talk about.
Well, we can absolutely talk about them, but there's two categories, I suppose. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's the authentic stuff, the real homologation stuff, and then there's the other sort that sort of pretends to be like that, but actually is. I mean, there's real engineering going on there. There really is, and often they are limited edition, but they are not bred from the racetrack.
No. Okay. What do you want to go with?
Do you want to do a bit more on the homologation specials then? Do you want to pick out a couple that we really need to discuss at length, rather than just mention?
Well, I mean, because I love it, the Stratos.
Yeah.
An amazing car, a car which so nearly didn't get built. because it didn't start off as a Stratos. It started off as a Bertone concept car. And they literally had to go and drive it into sort of Lancia HQ and bang the desk and say, look, you need this, you need this, you need this. And eventually it got built. And then it went and won absolutely everything.
In rallying, yeah.
In rallying. And a road-going Stratos, sadly I've never driven a race one, but a road-going Stratos is one of the most involving, hilarious cars you could ever want to get in, because they just don't want to travel. You can tell the heritage. You can tell exactly, because it just doesn't want to travel in a straight line.
Yeah.
This is a car which had a wraparound windscreen because they realised you'd spend more time looking out the side of the car than the front of it. This is a car whose door bins are shaped to hold helmets. It's so focused. And, of course, it's got that gorgeous 2.4 litre Ferrari V6 engine in it. And they look utterly mad. I just absolutely love a Stratos.
Yeah, they're great. They are great. Give us one more homologation special. Let's discuss one of those at length, and then we can perhaps move on.
Okay. This is actually a really good example of a homologation special that went too far. My point of view here is not reflected by the market, where these things are worth enormous amounts of money. So Ford obviously produced the Sierra Cosworth in, when was it, 86 or 87? I think they had to make 5,000 of those to homologate it for Group A, I think it would have been.
Yeah.
Racing and rallying and everything else. And those cars were great. They were affordable. They cost less than £20,000. They did 150 miles an hour. They looked absolutely bonkers. 3-door shells, massive wing on the back. But they were actually, I mean, you know, I know this because I know people who had them and ran them as daily drivers. They were perfectly sensible, usable, everyday cars. Then they produced the RS 500, which they had to do because they had, my memory of it is that they had to have a bigger turbo, because they needed like over 500 horsepower. The thing was good, and they could homologate it as a modification of a pre-existing and pre-homologated car. So that wasn't fine. That wasn't a problem. But they made, how many these RS 500s did they make? I'm guessing they made 500 of them. Can't remember. Maybe that's the reason they call them the RS 500. But they basically had no more power in road going form.
Oh, okay.
But they were massively more expensive. And I seem to remember they just weren't as nice to drive. Of course, they've become legends because the touring cars that they spawned, these bonkers things with 500 plus horsepower, went on to win everything and became the most successful car of its type of all. And so, you know, their popularity and the value of those cars, because they're very rare and because they have that incredible racing pedigree, is not to be denied. But as a road car, just to get in and drive, you think to yourself, well, this is costing a huge amount more money, and I'm not sure it's nice to drive. It's as nice as a standard Sierra Cosworth. So, yeah, and particularly the cars the Sierra Cosworth went on to spawn, which weren't homologation specials, like the Sapphire Cosworth.
Yeah,
a rear drive Sapphire Cosworth is a really underrated car. It's a really, even the 4-wheel drive ones were nice. But a rear-drive Sapphire Cosworth is a lovely car. And I only ever drove one RS 500 on the road. I've driven a race car, which is as nuts as you could imagine. And I was just underwhelmed by it. I just couldn't see where the extra value, from a point of view of a road car and somebody wanting to use a car on the road, I just couldn't see what it was buying you, other than scarcity.
I suspect with homologation cars, that's probably a running theme, particularly the Group B rally stuff, that they weren't refined cars. I don't mean as in NVH, noise, vibration, harshness. I mean, the manufacturers didn't spend a very, very long time making them absolutely as good as they can be, because they were built for a purpose. Yeah. They had to build a couple hundred of them. They would get a tick in a box from the FIA and they could go rallying. So something like an RS 200 is probably a pretty unpleasant road car.
I haven't driven any of them apart from, so I haven't driven an RS 200. I haven't driven a Metro. I'm talking about the road cars version. Yeah. I haven't driven a 205 T16. I haven't driven a Delta S4. Our friends at Gerardo & Co. did have a Stradale Delta S4 in it, didn't it? if they still got it, I'd love to go and have a go. The only one I've driven is the Quattro, which is the kind of like the least changed of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the others weren't even trying to be related to the cars that whose badges they carried, whereas the Quattro was a short wheelbase Audi Quattro. And even that, the car I drove wasn't a great example, or wasn't a great example at the time that I drove it. It didn't blow my socks off. Yeah. Interesting.
And I know a couple of people who have driven a 205 T16, a road car, and they say it's quite underwhelming, not that fast, quite crude.
It's funny, isn't it?
But you understand why, don't you? Because they were built purely to homologate the competition cars.
These are cars that were built because they had to be built.
Yeah.
And maybe you think to yourself, well, we've got to produce a certain amount. I mean, how incentivized are you going to be to do your absolute best if you're not building this car because you want to build it, because it's a passion product or anything? You got to build it because if you don't build them, you can't race those.
Yeah, and there's probably quite a short time frame to get it done.
Yeah, just get them out.
Okay, so that's homologation specials. Let's move it on to the pure road showroom specials that don't have that same breeding. There are lots of them. And we're not just talking supercars, because there are hot hatches, there are more affordable sports cars that qualify as well. Where do you want to go?
Okay, I'm going to start somewhere. I promise you could spend the rest of your life trying to guess where I'm going to start, and you wouldn't get there.
Fire away then.
You honestly, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me when you get there.
Go on.
You may not get there. You may not even have heard of this.
Oh, go on.
Only because not because you're ill-informed, but because you just weren't. You probably weren't alive when they're out.
Right.
Okay, Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Polo.
Yeah.
Harlequin.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is that the multicoloured one?
Yeah. So it's okay. It's a special. They were only going to do 1,000 of them.
Okay, fine. So
I just thought I'd start.
We're not just talking performance cars then.
No, I thought I'd start at the least
Harlequin.
easy.
Yeah.
So basic. I mean, okay, it's a silly car.
Actually, it's hilarious that they ever built that thing and sold it to the public.
So anybody listening to this who doesn't know what a Polo Harlequin is, I could spend the next 5 minutes describing it to you. But the much better thing is just go and stick it into Google and have a look at it. But basically, it's a Bogo Polo, absolutely no distinguishing features whatsoever, apart from the fact that it was brilliant from Volkswagen. It cost them no money to do.
Yeah.
Because instead of, making a car all the same colour, they just, because they would have had a number of yellow doors and a number of red roofs and a number of blue bonnets and everything else, and they just grabbed one of everything, and instead of staying with one colour, they just stuck all the different colours on one car.
Do you think it was random, the colours, the panels that you got?
I don't know, and I think there was a market, because I think they could be changed, and I think people got bored of those.
I want a red door.
So there was a market sort of saying, yes, I'll trade you a blue bonnet for a yellow tailgate.
Okay, good.
But the point about the Harlequin, and I looked this up, is they were going to do 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
Limited edition special. They ended up doing nearly 4,000 of them. They actually worked really well. People wanted it. I can't remember if I tell you what, if you turned up, I could do this next year.
Oh.
Festival of the Unexceptional.
Yeah.
Why have I even mentioned it?
Well, you've blown it
I've blown it now, haven't I? Festival of the Unexceptional in a Harlequin.
That's a winner. Or is it too exceptional?
No, but it's not. It's incredibly unexceptional. It's just a bloody Polo. There's not a single modified part on it.
I wonder what they cost.
Are you looking it up?
No, I won't do it now because it'll take too long, but it's interesting to know. It would be interesting to know.
I don't think you pay much money for a Harlequin. I mean, you pay more than a Polo. But from Volkswagen, it's such
Do you want to fill for a minute and I'll see if I can find it?
It's such a brilliant business plan, because in terms of investment from Volkswagen, you get this whole new car, you get a limited edition, it's done something which no other car in history has ever done before, and your investment in it is precisely no pounds and no pence. I just think it's an absolute genius bit of marketing.
This is interesting.
Go on. Don't tell me they're 20 grand.
So a very, very quick search.
Yeah.
And 2 have come up immediately. Actually, there's quite a few up. 2,600 I can see one for in Germany.
Okay.
But I think there were different colour combinations, but a limited number of them. Because when you look at the adverts, you see, that one looks like that one. And then there's a different one. That one looks like that one. So the first 2 that come up have exactly the same panels.
Okay.
But then you scroll down a bit and you see some that are very, very different.
Well, maybe they've done some swapsies.
Maybe. It looks like it wasn't entirely random is what I'm saying. But anyway, £2,614 if you fancy going to Germany.
I mean, yeah. Well, we'll see you at the festival next year. Okay, I'm going to put it out there now. There's going to be a Harlequin at the festival next year.
And it'll win.
Someone's going to listen to this and just thought to themselves, Well, of course they will, because they'll certainly be a TI podcast listener. They might even be a TI subscriber. I'm going to be one of the judges, so I'll just make sure that it wins.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, that was a good place to start. All right. Well, I feel like maybe I should give you one then.
Go on then.
Slightly back on topic. Black Series Mercedes-AMGs.
Oh, very good.
Some of them are cracking.
Yeah, but some of them are terrible. Well, no, one of them was terrible.
The SLK?
The SLK, the first one.
So we work with Helen, who does a lot of our social media stuff.
Yeah.
And her partner have got a CLK 63 Black Series.
Yeah.
And we saw it the other day, didn't we? And that is a really interesting car because it is flawed. If you look at it as a road tester, right, steely-eyed road tester, you realise that the steering is pretty woolly, that the body shell is actually quite flexible. You can really feel it flexing about.
You know she listens to this podcast, don't you?
Sorry, Helen. Sorry, Tommy. The automatic gearbox is pretty limited in what it can do. It's not that fast. But actually, the engine is cracking. It looks really cool. It looks
brilliant.
It does. It's a real event, that car.
And it's one of those cars that you kind of have to go with it. It's not the sort of car that you can really bend to your requirements.
That's right.
You have to drive it the way that it wants to be driven. But if you do, and you learn how to make the most of the gearbox and that sort of thing, it's still pretty wonderful.
Yeah, and it'll do
still a fine thing.
It'll do skids everywhere, and it'll light up its rear tyres.
Still feel really fast.
Yeah. The C63 Black Series that came after is technically a much better car.
It's a much more capable car.
But I don't.
But doesn't have that charm.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It's interesting.
But yeah, the original one, the SLK 55 Black Series, was, I mean, it's probably the worst Mercedes I've driven. I can't think of another Mercedes that has disappointed me more.
Wow.
Relative to expectations.
Yeah.
And what was the SL called?
65?
The SL65. That wasn't a great car. I mean, that was, for a long time, the most powerful Mercedes that they built.
Big V12.
Yeah, but I mean, it had more power than... did it have more power than an SLR? I think it did.
Don't know.
I think it did. But it was this rather sort of flabby, doesn't know whether it's a sports car, doesn't know whether it's a GT, somewhere between the two. But then there are things like the SLS Black. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a great example of the extra performance being absolutely not the point. The SLS was always quite a tricky car, quite a difficult car to drive fast. And then the Black came out, and then suddenly it wasn't anymore. It was a car in which you could be completely confident hoofing around, have great fun in it. And it was bizarre because it was the most expensive, it was the most extreme, it was the most powerful, but actually it was the easiest to drive. And that's a really good example of a special that absolutely exceeds in all possible directions and dimensions the standards of the car that it was spun off from.
Yeah, it really was better than the base car.
Yeah.
Go on then, your turn.
Okay. Well, do you want to? Can we do the sort of the off-road sports cars? I mean, there are only two I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
And again, these are actually both cars that. I mean, one example, one of the most surprising cars I've driven. The other one, just a car which was just so damn good. So the so damn good one is the 911 Dakar.
Yeah.
And because we spend our entire lives talking about 911s, I'm not going to dwell on that. But if I could think of my perfect daily driver, it would be a Dakar with all the blingy bits taken off it, which you can do, debadged, with two sets of wheels and tyres. So I'd have the Scorpions, the off-road wheels for it, but the rest of the time I'd just stick it on normal road tyres, and that would just be superb because they ride so well. Because they don't have enormous amounts of grip, you really can skid them about beautifully without doing lunatic speeds. I love the Dakar. I just thought it was a really, really cleverly conceived, well executed car.
Yeah, they did it properly, didn't they? It's not a pure novelty. They really, really went to town with it, and it's really good. Yeah.
But you know the other one I'm going to mention,
Huracan Storate.
Yeah,
I haven't driven one.
Oh my goodness,
Is it good?
certainly of anything remotely modern, it is the best Lamborghini I've driven.
Ooh.
And I
Wow.
include Aventador SVJs, which is another Lamborghini that there have been so many Lamborghinis I just haven't got on with.
Yeah.
And most Hurricanes are in that category. Most Aventadors are in that category. Most Diablos are in that category. I can never remember how to pronounce it right. The Murcielago or Murcielago, whichever one,
Whatever.
is not in that category.
Yeah.
Never drove a bad one of those.
Okay.
But the point, I came to the Storato, and if anybody wants to know, I'm sure it's the kind of, it's slightly jacked up, and it's got those sort of weird front driving lights on it, and it looks like a sort of slightly. What it is, a Hurricane which is designed, it looks like the sort of love child of a cross between a Hurricane and a aerial Nomad.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And I got into one of these things really with my expectations under very close control. And we had it up in North Wales and Snowdonia, and then on Anglesey. And I was completely and utterly knocked out by it.
Wow.
I couldn't believe how good it was.
Yeah.
And it was and the Dakar does this too, but it was such a lesson in less being more, because it doesn't have the grip of a Hurricane.
Yeah.
And it is so much better for that fact. Not just because it's easier to slide about, but it's also on tyres which have a bit of sidewall. And the suspension, I think, is a bit softer. So it rides properly. It was just It was a car that you thought that actually would only make sense if you were driving it down some gravel track at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But actually, it made brilliant sense everywhere.
Well, the thing about those two cars, the Dakar and the Storato, I've only driven the Dakar. Engineers and car manufacturers, it seems, have spent the last few decades trying to give their cars more grip and more control of their mass.
Yeah.
Because those things make a car faster. That's absolutely true.
So what?
But they don't make it more fun. And these cars demonstrate that a bit more body movement, a bit more roll and lean, a bit more wheel travel, a bit more flex in the sidewall, a bit less grip, and actually you've got a more fun car.
Yeah, but you also got a more comfortable car.
Yeah.
You've got a car you want to drive more often.
Yeah.
You also sort of feel, when you're in those cars which, generate huge amounts of G-force and require you to go to roads which are, either to racetracks or to roads which are going to be deserted, because otherwise you just can't enjoy that dimension of what they can do. And then you're just driving along, you think, I really don't want to be driving this fast. And there's the sort of the guilt sets in, and then you worry about whether, you're at the limit of what is safe to do. And in those other cars, you can just hoof them about because they really don't have very much grip, and they're just so much. And then when they do start to slide, they do so much more gently because they've got some sidewall, and you're not going that fast, and so you feel more confident, and you just have more fun. They are just more fun. Less in that case is absolutely more.
So what else is there in that market? There's the Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally, isn't there? I'm not sure if that quite qualifies, but you understand they're doing something similar. Morgan did one. I can't remember what that was called.
No, and I haven't driven either that or the Ford.
And Alpine did do a one-off, didn't they? They did teaser. What did they call it? I can't remember, but it's the same sort of thing. It's such a shame they didn't pursue it.
Yeah. So they made 1,500 Storatos, and I presume they just sold immediately. And actually, 1,500, that's not many cars.
Yeah.
If we use our sort of standard yardstick, they made about 1,350 Ferrari F40s.
Yeah.
So they're not much more common than those.
I guess no one knew what the appetite was for an off-road sports car.
No, but I bet you there's going to be a Storato. What's the new one called? The Temerario or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we did posit, didn't we, when we drove the Dakar, that ultimately that's going to become an option on the configurator. You choose a Carrera 4 and tick the box to make it a Dakar.
That'd be great. I'd tick it in a heartbeat.
It'd be wonderful.
Another example of a car that went on to have a life that was never intended for it. And another example of less being so much more. And actually an example of a special which is much, much better than the car it's derived from. Audi R8 RWS.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was quite a tricky car for Audi. since the 1980s, the early 1980s, they've marketed themselves. They built their entire brand
Quattro.
on all the qualities that come with four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they build a rear-drive sports car and we all go, what's better?
Yeah, why didn't you just do them all like that? But they said, it was 999 cars. And I remember saying, this car is so good. You're going to do some more. Absolutely not. We're never going to do any more of these. No, This is it. It's limited edition, 999 cars. Take it or leave it. You can drive this one and then you'll never see another again.
And then they did a little more.
And then they did, well, yeah, but they weren't RWSs. They were RWDs, weren't they?
Well, yeah.
And that became a standard production model. And they were all better than the cars than the four-wheel drive ones as well.
I remember doing an auto. You're probably there. An auto car handling day up at Anglesey.
That was, yeah, absolutely. Blue car.
Yeah, and everyone was hoofing around McLaren LTs, and maybe there's a 488 Pista or something there. And the R8, it wasn't brilliant on track, and I think it did cook its tyres or brakes. But then I was just thinking, okay, fine. So it's not an out-and-out track car, but we're all up on Anglesey here. We've all got 5 hours home. Which one do you want to take? Which one do you want to live with?
Yeah.
And the R8, it would just be wonderful.
Yeah. I completely agree.
So why was it better?
Well, I mean, it's not rocket science.
No.
No polluted steering because you've got no drive shafts at the front. Lighter. That's it.
Yeah.
And they deliberately didn't let it have the more power, the big engine. They did right at the end of the production run, didn't they? They did a limited edition. Did they do a limited edition rear drive? Have I imagined that?
Possibly they
did.
With
the high power, with the 610 horsepower engine.
I think they may well. Oh, I don't know.
But anyway, you only got the basic sort of 540 PS engine with it. And I couldn't have cared less. I literally couldn't have cared less. You could most of the time you struggle even to use that. So the fact that you were 70 horsepower down was neither here nor there. It just felt so much more on your side. It felt more communicative. You knew where it was. You weren't sort of wondering where the nose was. You just had a lighter, purer, more driver-centric car. For actually, in real terms, what was the downside?
So,
traction,
off the line performance and wet weather traction,
standing start, and and traction in unimaginably awful weather. But it's not like it was exactly lacking in traction. It had huge fat tires and a large V10 engine sat on top of them. So it's not as if they were traction limited. No. It's not like you're dealing with like an Aston Martin Vanquish or something.
When I first drove one, I said there was a time where four-wheel drive did improve supercars or make them more drivable, certainly. But nowadays, you don't really need it because we've got electronic systems that are very, very good, tyres that are very, very good, suspension that's very, very good.
Yeah.
And four-wheel drive often detracts from these cars.
And as I've often said, and not just in a sort of high-performance context, but in among all road cars, four-wheel drive, it can often lull you into a full sense of security because it gives the impression of there being grip when there isn't, because you've got so much traction. But you forget, you've still got the brakes of a two-wheel drive car. You've still got the tyre grip in terms of, when you accelerate hard in a four-wheel drive car, the reason in bad weather, the reason it grips and two-wheel drive cars don't is because each tyre has been given half the work to do. If you're going around a corner, that doesn't apply. If you're trying to stop, that doesn't apply. Which is why I've always felt more confident. I've always been slightly suspicious of cars. Four-wheel drive versions of cars with two-wheel drive, and I'd never own one. It's different if you've got a Range Rover or a Defender or something, which you might one day need to tow a horse box across a muddy field. Then of course there's a point to it, but otherwise I wouldn't bother.
I just want to do some hot hatches to demonstrate that it's not all expensive sports cars.
So we're going R26R and things like that.
Yeah. And I want to suggest to you that the Nürburgring and the battle for the front-wheel drive production car record at the Nürburgring was the sort of the younger generation's Group B and Group A homologation special, right? It's the equivalent. Manufacturers, because there was this track, the Nürburgring, and because setting lap times around there became such a big marketing tool, manufacturers had this incentive to build these specials. And they weren't motorsport homologation specials at all, actually. But they had a lot of the attributes. Weight-saving measures. In the case of a lot of these hot hatches, the Golf GTI Club Sport S, what else am I thinking of?
The Nutty McGann?
The Nutty, McGann R26R and the ones that followed. No rear seats. to save weight and just sort of make them seem a bit more purposeful.
What was that Megane that cost 70 grand?
Trophy R.
Yeah, that's the one.
I think. Yeah. And they had sticky tires and all sorts of other engineering going on, and some of them were properly exciting, properly rapid cars. There was a Seat Leon Cupra Sub 8 as well. I think that did have rear seats, but it held the record for a while, and it was just fast. So some good cars in there.
Well, would you have spent your money on them? Would you have spent £70,000 on a Renault Megane?
No, that's nuts. But I think
but that's the point, isn't it?
There was a version that was 50 grand or whatever. But
would you buy a hatchback with 2 seats? Or would you buy a Cayman instead? That's the thing.
I agree. I wouldn't.
Okay, so
they're really enjoyable to drive.
Exactly.
But is it more fun than a Cayman?
No. There was no. Well, sorry, a front drive 2-litre turbocharged.
Yeah.
No, it just isn't. I can remember driving that nutty Megane. I'm trying to remember where we were. It's gone. It'll come to me. Probably Anglesey. I can't remember. But I'm just thinking this car can do incredible things. But it's not. It's not a 70 grand car. All those cars, and I know you and I know people who've got R26Rs. I mean, I really admire people who have those cars. And actually, if it was a sort of fun thing to have as part of a multi-car collection, then I can see that. Yeah. Because they are completely different, and they go about what they do in a completely different way to anything else. And so I do get that. But I would never, ever, 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 if I was looking for a sort of single car toy, buy one of those instead of, as I said, for instance, a Cayman. Because to me, there is no world in which that works.
We met a bloke recently. He's probably listening to this. I think he is a podcast listener who has an R26R. He told us he's done 111 track days in it.
Yeah,
which is fantastic. At least he's using it properly.
Brilliant, absolutely. And for him, it really works. And I'm not saying that I'm right and he's wrong at all.
It's just preference.
It's just personal preference.
But all I was going to say is, if I had, call it 20 grand, and I wanted a track day toy, I'd be getting a Caterham, I think.
Of course. Yeah,
but I've had a lot of fun in R26Rs, and the one that followed it's hard to remember all the names. I think the Trophy R was the one that followed, and then the one after that perhaps had a different name again. I can't remember, but the first two certainly were really good fun and fast.
Okay, can I give you an example of one which is not worse than the car that it's based on, but essentially ruined the car it was based on?
Go on.
F82 BMW M4 GTS.
Yes, you hate this car. I've been waiting for this.
The most well, it is. I was looking it up, just sort of just trying to reacquaint myself with it, and and there are references to it online as being the most divisive car in all of motoring. And part of me thinks that sometimes it may not have been the car's fault, because it was one of these cars that you could set up.
Yeah, you could,
for road or for track. And I can remember. Probably when you were on Evo, you had it, and I don't know who wrote the story, but they thought it was fantastic. And we know and like and respect all the people who work there, and I'd never say that we were right and they were wrong. All I can tell you is that the car that I drove was, on the road it was almost undrivable. It was so uncomfortable, and on the track, it was just pinging and skipping, and it was rubbish.
So. I've driven quite a few M4 GTSs.
Have you?
So
I've driven one.
I first drove one at Circuit de Catalunya, the Barcelona Grand Prix track, on the full Grand Prix track. And then I drove one at Blyton Park, which is the opposite end of the racetrack spectrum. And both were good. Both were set up in the proper track mode. But
you didn't drive them on the road as well?
I'll come to that.
And
the difference is quite significant. There's damper differences, there's a bit of aero, there's, I don't know, maybe some other bits and pieces, maybe even ride height, I don't know. But the ones that I drove on track, certainly the one that I drove at Barcelona, warm, dry Grand Prix track, and a properly focused car. It was brilliant. It was really good fun. The one at Blyton Park just felt a little bit uncomfortable on that track. But then I've driven at least one on the road as well. And there was one at Evo Car of the Year.
Yeah.
I drove that car several times, as you do throughout that week. I drove it in different conditions. In the wet.
I bet you it was absolutely... No, it wouldn't. I'd bet it's hilarious. I'm terrifying.
Absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
There is footage of me that it made it into the video. I'm just driving along at relatively sensible speeds. It's raining. The road is slippery. I've got all the systems on. I just turn into a corner, probably tickle the throttle a little bit as we come out, and it just snaps on me.
Yeah.
And I'm getting very, very busy just trying to keep it on the road.
Hate that.
Then, a couple of days later, it's dried out. The roads are slightly different. Tyres are warm. They're gripping. And then I found the road car in the M4 GTS. And it was really nice. Lovely damping. Good balance. So I'm very much in two minds about that car. But then there was a GTS before it, wasn't there? The V8 based on the E92.
Yeah, but they made 150 of those, didn't they?
Was it only 150?
Yeah. Actually, they were going to make 150. I think they only sold 138, but they were.
Is that right?
They were so expensive, weren't they?
Yeah, they were proper sort of GT3 RS kind of money, weren't they? I think by design we're not really doing the LT McLarens and the special Ferraris, the Speciale, and the Pista and so on.
Can I just mention things like with the special Ferraris, because I mean they are interesting, because I mean I guess when I sit here and I say that these specials are how, well, I said at the top of the podcast that when I think of these specials I think about how disappointing some of them have been. Relative to expectations, or how much, no, disappointing is the wrong word, how much, how they've turned out to be not as good to me as the cars they're based upon. So let's just run very quickly through the Ferraris. They start with the 360 with the Challenge Stradale.
Yep.
Brilliant. Massive improvement on, frankly, not one of the greatest Ferraris. 458 Speciale.
Well, Scuderia between that, 430 Scuderia.
430 Scuderia. I mean, great, fantastic, but again, an improvement on a car which is, I mean, 430 is a good car, but I don't think it's ever going to be regarded as one of the great Ferraris. The interesting one to me is the 458.
Yeah.
Because I think a standard 458 is one of the greatest supercars of all time, not just Ferraris. I think the looks, the engine, everything. And the Speciale, to me, and I've got a friend who's got one, who has actually been on this podcast, but to me, it takes away more than it delivers. They are really pretty uncivilized cars in which to do a distance. I mean, I was glad to get out of it. I once had to drive one from Wales back to Ferrari's head office in Slough, and it's ridiculous, isn't it? But all I was doing, just sitting on the M4 at, whatever speed you sit on the M4 at, and it wasn't a very nice place to be. And I just thought, if I'd just been in a normal, I mean, maybe that just sounds terribly spoilt and entitled. And I'm just thinking, I'm not talking about, the fact that I was in this incredibly rare and special Ferrari. I'm just talking about it in terms of, did it ride very well? Was it very comfortable? Was it sufficiently quiet that I could, hear myself think? And the answer to all those questions was no.
I love them. I think they're great.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
I took one with a 991 GT3 down to Le Mans one year. We had a blast in that thing.
Yeah, good on you.
But I understand they are... Well, I suppose the point is the 360 Challenge Stradale massively improved on a flawed base car.
Yeah.
But the 458 is such a great starting point that it wasn't necessary to make it...
But the 488 is the same. So the Pista, great car in isolation. Really like the Pista. But really, is it yay better than a 488, which I think is another staggeringly good car?
Yeah.
Not to me. Not to me. You lose all your luggage space, don't you?
I think it's right that they exist because people want them, and they are better on track.
Yeah, but okay. I mean, I've had 488. I've had 488s on track. In fact, there was one amazing day we had up at Anglesey where we had a 911R, a 488, and a 675 LT on track. So you think 911R, 675 LT. Now, I don't think the 488 of the three won. I think probably came third, but it got damn close. Okay, so it is no slugger.
No, of course.
It is not. It is one of the cars that you could still...
But a Pista would be faster.
Yeah, but so I don't care. I couldn't care less. We're not Formula One drivers. What importance is the lap time? And it probably would on a track be a better car to drive than a 488. But these cars cannot live by track work alone. And that's only one way of measuring what it does, and there are too many other ways in which it fails to me to justify, the additional cost of buying it, which was always considerable. But
it's fair enough. It's fair enough. Okay, we are running out of time.
Oh, blimey, are we?
I just want to do a couple of Aston Martins.
Oh, okay.
The Vantage, GT8 and GT12.
There have been so many modified Aston Martins, haven't there? So many N430s
and 400s and
yeah,
on and on and on it goes. But they were really limited in the low hundreds, weren't they, both of them?
150 GT8s, 100 GT12s.
Wow.
Wouldn't it be great to have driven them both side by side on the same road together?
Do you know, I think we did.
Did we?
On a slightly icy day earlier this year up in Warwickshire.
Would that be on our website and app now?
It is. It's there and it's on YouTube.
Go and check it out.
But they both had those robotised manual paddle shift transmissions. I think, could you get a manual in the GT8 perhaps?
Yes.
I think you could.
Yes, you could.
I've driven one of those.
Yeah, you could.
I can't remember. But actually, what I really remember of those is how wonderful the V12 in the GT12 was.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
That GT12 that was a proper car, wasn't it?
Such an exciting car. And that engine, the sound of it. Oh.
Okay, was it dramatically better, given that you could get a six-speeder, than a V12 Vantage?
It's so hard to... in terms of rawness and excitement, it is on a different level.
Yeah.
But as an overall package, probably not.
I do remember thinking that GT12 was a very special car.
Just while we're talking about noise,
yeah,
there's something else that we wanted to briefly discuss, wasn't there?
Oh, we're doing that now. Yeah,
I think we should. We are running out of time, so maybe that's the last thing we talk about this episode.
So we're now off specials.
Unless there's one more that you want to do.
Well, I was going to have a quick chat about the Clio Williams, but maybe that ship has sailed.
Okay.
Because it was an example of a classic of a special, which turned out to be more special than even the people who made the special was expecting it to be, and therefore, so the original plan I think was to make a very low number of thousands.
And they just kept doing them.
And they ended up making over 12,000 of them, much to the chagrin. Yeah, 12,100, I believe. Anyway, no. So let's talk noise.
So is it next year? I think a new regulation comes in.
I think it's July next year.
That's going to cause an enormous... it's not just a headache, it's a huge problem for people like us and for the manufacturers of these special cars. Do you know the details? Is it a new drive-by noise regulation?
Yeah, drive-by noise limit comes down from 76 decibels to 68. And that doesn't sound like much, but it's not an arithmetic scale.
The way is it exponential? I don't know if it is, but the way decibels work, I think you add 3 decibels and it becomes twice as loud to the ear.
Yeah, it's something like that. I mean, there was somebody who should know who was telling us at the recent Bicester Scramble that basically it's going to halve the noise levels. I don't know whether he meant that literally.
I think it's how it seems to the ear, how we perceive it.
And it's difficult, isn't it? Because, we have everybody listening to this, I would imagine, loves a car that sounds amazing. But at the same time, we've all been cheesed off by inconsiderate twats blasting through our villages and towns in cars with, stupid exhausts on them. So it's difficult. But it is such a shame. It will be a shame if that means that, cars that were traditionally made wonderful sounds. I mean, I guess it's less of a problem now because in this turbocharged era, cars don't tend to sound as good as they used to. But if, I don't know, the next GT3 911, we're already finding this, aren't we? I did a story driving a Cayman GTS, which has a 4-litre naturally aspirated flat 6 in it. And the only thing that was ever so slightly disappointing about it is it just sounded slightly strangled at the top end. And I know that's got nothing to do with the engine. It's got everything to do with the need to meet whatever the current regulations are, let alone the ones that are coming in. I think the real problem with this is that in terms of sort of popular opinion, I think most people will be all for it because most people who drive cars, don't want noisy cars, and they don't. If you said, come and listen to this flat 6 at 8,000 RPM, they'd probably go, well, no thanks. It's just a bloody racket.
And it is going to be properly policed, isn't it? This thing.
Well, they say. I mean, and it is going on now. So. We were talking to somebody who said they'd been ticketed because their car didn't have stop-start. Were you part of that conversation?
I don't know. I don't think so.
So they have these sound cameras now, don't
Yeah.
they? Which are expensive, but they are coming out. And they were saying to me that they were at some traffic lights which were red for a very, very long time, and their car didn't have top stop start, so they got a ticket because it was one of these, and you know, their car was making an unnecessary noise.
Wow.
And you know, I think what these things. Okay, so what I think that these cameras are, or microphones, or whatever they are, I think what they're designed to do. I don't think they're really designed to pick up on cars because they haven't got stop start. Because that means, you know, everybody who ever owned an old car will be getting a ticket all the time. What I think they do is that they have a database of all the cars.
Oh, God.
And then, so they know how much noise they should be making while sat at idle at traffic lights. And if they measure the noise that your car is making, as making more than that noise, they'll send you the bill.
Wow.
I think I read somewhere that, you know, initially you'll get a warning and then it's 50
okay.
quid and that sort of thing. But I mean, you can kind of see the way that this is going. And there are a few points to think about this because, you know, so what they're saying is that your car is making too much noise. But if the exhaust that you have fitted, which is making too much noise, is in itself a legal exhaust, it's difficult, isn't it? And is it only when you're parked at traffic lights? Because when you're parked at traffic lights, that's not usually when cars are most annoying. You know, they're most annoying when they're driving through your village too fast in an unnecessarily low gear. So are they going to nail them too? It's really difficult. But again, it just plays to this narrative. There's this sense that, you know, I don't want to call them the fun police. And I do understand why people, you know, as someone who has been disturbed by noisy machines, I do get it. But and I'm sure that manufacturers will find a way around it in terms of how they manage the noise inside the car.
They're going to augment it, aren't they?
They will pipe it, and you know, and they will still make sure that there's something to listen to. So I find myself very torn on the issue, and I mention it now only because it's increasingly being talked about, and it is coming. And come next July, the way the cars you sound, unless you buy an EV, I guess, is going to be quite different. And you may think that's fantastic, you may not, but it is coming, and we should be aware of it.
And certainly for the manufacturers of the cars of the sort that we've been discussing on this podcast,
and the noise is so much part of the character of those things.
It's a big problem.
What I haven't read, so the thing that, you know, where I live, the noise issue doesn't come from cars. When we first moved in 17 years ago, the motorcycles made a lot of noise. They seem to have all quietened down quite a lot, apart from these guys who go screaming around the off-road trails in these on these sort of trail bikes, which make totally unnecessary.
They make a horrible sound. Actually.
Make a horrible sound. And what they tend to do is they tend to find an area, and there's one not far from where we live, where the trails are good, and they tend to sort of concentrate on the area. So it's not like just, you know, a car which just goes wham, and then it's gone. You could spend an entire afternoon, and they usually tend to do it at the weekends, obviously. So you can find yourself, you know, in your garden trying to enjoy just a bit of peace and quiet in, you know, a beautiful part of the country, and you just hear these inconsiderate arses on the other side of the valley making, you know, enormous amounts of noise, and I don't see any attempt by anyone to try to regulate that. And that certainly to me, and I imagine that if there are people listening to this who live in the countryside, they will all know exactly what I'm talking about. And you know, so you're sat at some traffic lights, and maybe your exhaust isn't necessarily in the finest condition, and maybe it's making a tiny bit more noise than it should do. Well, we'll nail you. I know. But there are these bastards who go around making all this and ruining, you know, the weekends of entire communities, and they just are able to act with impunity.
It doesn't seem fair, but let's not get too stuck into it. Right.
Good. Excellent.
We've very quickly run out of time. So we'll wrap this one up. All I'm going to do now is remind you all to subscribe to the show. If you're watching on YouTube, please just hit that subscribe button. If you're listening via an audio app like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just follow the show. It means you don't miss one. It really helps us. Please do that, and in return, we'll be back again next week.
I look forward to it.